guys know what was that topic which was missing? Okay, basically there are two topics which are missing. The first one is meta tag. Okay, and this meta tag I will explain while I'm explaining you guys about media queries. Okay, that makes more sense to understand about meta tag while understanding the media queries topic in CSS. Okay, and one more topic which was missing was text formatting tags. Okay, these are the two topics which I need to cover. Anyways, this topic I will cover while explaining about the media queries in CSS. When it comes to text formatting tags, I just want to give you guys to learn this topic by yourself. I want you guys to learn this topic by yourself. And tomorrow itself, I will ask you guys the question like, are you guys able to learn this topic by yourself or not? Okay. So based on majority answer, what I will do, if I feel, then I will just teach this topic for 10 minutes. It will just take 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. It just take 5 to 10 minutes to teach this topic. Okay. So in tomorrow's session, first 5 to 10 minutes, I will teach this topic. But before I teach, I just want you guys to explore by yourself and just check. You know so many concepts in HTML now. Now, if I give any new concept, if any new concept is introduced in HTML, then are you guys able to learn by yourself or not? Okay, that part you guys check from your end. Okay, first you try to learn. If you are not able to learn, if you got confused while learning, then tomorrow when I will explain this same topic, then you will understand exactly where you were making the mistake. Okay, these are the two topics. Apart from that, I think we have covered everything. And I have shared this PDF, right, at initial classes. So this is the content of your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, what we are going to cover. In case if someone doesn't have, they can just save and bookmark it. Okay. So I think we have covered almost all the topics which I have seen. This one topic was pending and that meta tags was pending. Apart from that, we have covered everything. Now, in today's session, we will start with one of the most important topic in CSS, that is CSS grid. So how many of you know this topic? CSS grid or grid in CSS? Like, feel free to let me know, guys, on the chat. How many of you know this topic? And this is very, 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 very important topic. And after learning CSS grid, you will get lot of confidence to create any kind of web page. If I show any kind of template in front of you, you will be confident to create such pages. You will directly say, yes, I can create such page. You will get the confidence. Okay. So did you guys understood the flex concept? I hope everybody understood the flex concept. And using flex concept, we were able to design some web pages, right? Netflix web page, portfolio web page, nav bar, we were able to develop. Yes. Now, if I open something in front of you, like if I open some website in front of you, now if I ask you, can you guys create this kind of website? Can you create this kind of user interface? What will be your answer? Just by seeing this user interface, what will be your answer? Can you guys create this kind of user interface? Okay, in case if you're thinking that you can create this kind of user interface with Flex, then you guys are right. Obviously, you are right. You can create this kind of user interface using Flex, but creating user interface completely using Flex, creating this kind of user interface completely using only Flex will be little challenging. Okay, it's not like you cannot create, you can create, but it will be little challenging for you guys to create user interface using Flex. If I want to create this layout, guys, this kind of layout using Flex, you can create, but it will be little challenging for you. In the same way, if I ask you to create this kind of user interface using Flex, you can create. It might take little time for you, maybe half an hour, maybe 1 hour, maybe for some people 2 hours, maybe for some people 3 hours. It's okay. If it is taking time while learning the things, it's okay. Okay. Now, this kind of user interface you can develop using Flex, but it will be little challenging for you. It will be little challenging for you. So if you want, just for practice purpose, you can design this kind of user interface using only Flex. Only Flex, you try it. Then you will understand what are the challenges you are going to face if you develop this kind of user interface using Flex. Okay, so as a student, you have to try it. As a student, you have to try it for at least practice purpose. Okay, now what is the problem with Flex here? So here we have to create, if I just take the screenshot of it. Okay, if I want to create this kind of user interface, then I have to create layout in both the direction. If I want to create this kind of user interface, then I have to create layout in both the direction. Both the direction means in column direction also and in row direction also. Suppose this is our container. Now what I need to do, I have to create columns like this: column 1, column 2, okay, column 3, column 4. And I need to create even rows also. Something like this: row 1, row 2, and row 3. Now we know that using Flex, we can create layouts only in one direction at a time. At a time, using Flex, you can create layouts only in one direction. It can be row direction, it can be column direction. Am I right? Using Flex, at a time, you can create layouts only in one direction, maybe in the row, maybe in the column. But at a time, if you want to create layouts in both the direction, at a time, if you want to create layout in both the direction, in row direction also, in column direction also, then we go for grid. Then we go for the concept called CSS grid. Okay. So what is CSS grid? It is one of the property in CSS. It is one of the property in CSS using which we can create layouts in both the direction at same time. It is one of the property in CSS using which we can create layout in both the direction at same time. Okay, what is CSS Flex? If you remember, what is CSS Flex? If I ask you what is CSS Flex? What is CSS Flex? It is also one of the CSS property using which we can create layout only in one direction at same time. At same time, we can create layout only in one direction. Here in both the direction. This is the difference. At same time. Remember this, at the same time. So in your interviews, lot of time, they will ask you, what is the difference between flex and grid? Lot of time, in lot of interviews I have seen, and in case if someone have attended the interview on CSS, then you might have encountered with this question. What is the difference between CSS grid and CSS flex? Very important interview question. 90% people are going to ask this question if they are taking the interview on CSS. If they are taking the interview on CSS, this is mandatory question you will encounter. Okay, so I hope you guys understood the first difference between CSS grid and CSS flex. If you give this difference, if you tell this difference, 90% you are selected for this answer. 90% you have selected for this answer. Okay, this is the main difference between CSS grid and CSS flex. Both are used to create layouts only, but using grid, you can create layout in both the direction at same time. But using flex, you can create layout only in one direction at same time. Okay, now how to work with this grid? Let's try to understand. It's very similar to your flex concept. So how do we create one flex container? In the same way, here we have to create one grid container. Okay. Now, once you have created grid container, then you have to create number of columns. You have to tell in this grid container how many columns you want. In the same way, you have to tell how many rows you want. That's it. And this is how we create the grid container. This is how we create the layouts. Now see, rows also created and columns also created. And this both the instructions we can give at same time. Both the instructions we can give at same time. It means to create columns, we have a separate property. To create rows, we have a separate property. When it comes to flex, there if you want to arrange your elements in row, then you have only one property, that is flex direction. If you want to arrange, if you want to create rows, you have to say row. If you want to create columns, you have to say column. It means you have only one property in flex. But here to create rows, you have one property. To create columns, you have one more property. Okay. I hope you guys understood the concept of grid. Is it clear, guys, for everyone? What is the concept of grid? Okay, the first step, whenever you guys are learning any technology, first try to understand the problem. Okay, first always try to understand the problem with existing concept. Problem with existing concept. Then try to think how can we solve this problem? How to solve problem? Now already all the technologies, they have given the solution to solve the problem by introducing new concept, by just introducing new concept. Now understand the new concept. First understand the concept. Now once you understood the concept, then try to think where to apply the concept, where to apply, how to apply, and when to apply. Okay, so ask these 4 questions to any concept. What is the concept? Why this concept? how to apply this concept, where to apply this concept, when to apply this concept. Ask these questions to any concept on any technology. Now, if you have the answers for all these questions, then it means you know perfectly about that topic. You are perfect with that topic. Try to ask these 4 questions. If you know the answers for these 4 questions on any concept, then you are perfect with that topic. If you are not sure with any answer of any question, just try to research. Just try to research about it. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Rajnish. I will let you know how to use flex and grid and how to decide which we have to use. Okay. Now let's come here. Now first we will learn how to create grid container. Let's learn how to create grid container. So to create grid container, we have to simply take one div element. We have to take one div element, assign some width and height, width and height. Okay. And that too completely optional. If you want to assign, you assign. If you don't want to assign, you can skip, depending upon your requirement. Then simply configure display property. And this time the value of display property should be grid. This time the value of display property should be grid. That's it. This is how we create one grid container. Okay. Understood how to create grid container? Now let's try practically. Now here I am just creating grid container .html. Okay, I have created the basic structure of HTML. Now inside this body, I want to create one grid container. So I'm just taking one class, grid container. Nothing but I have taken one div with the class grid container. Okay. Now inside this, I'm simply adding some content like grid container. That's it. Now inside this head, I will take one style tag. Okay. I have taken one style tag. I will select this div. Assign some width, maybe something like 800 pixel. I will assign some height, something like 400 pixel. I will assign border 2 pixel solid black. Okay, and margin from top 100 pixel and auto. If I just open this document in my browser, it looks something like this. Okay, now if I ask you, is this div is a grid container? Is this div is a grid container? So what will be your answer? If I ask you, is this a grid container? What will be your answer? Yeah, it is not a grid container. It is not a grid container. When this div will be a grid container, if I assign display property and if I assign the value grid. Now this is a grid container. Okay, this is the grid container. That's it. I hope everybody understood how to create a grid container. Now second task is how to create columns in the grid container. How to create columns in the grid container. So to create columns in a grid container, again we will take the help of div element only. We will take the help of div element. Okay. Apart from this, inside our container, inside our grid container, we have to tell how many columns you want and what should be the size of your column. You have to give two information: how many columns and what should be the size of each column. So how to tell how many columns you want? For that, we have one more property called grid hyphen template hyphen columns. This is the property we have to use. And how many columns you want, that many values you have to configure here. For example, if I am saying here 100 pixel, if I give a value 100 pixel space 100 pixel, now I have given two values. It means we are telling that we want two columns, and each column size will be 100 pixel, 100 pixel. Size means it will consider in the terms of width. It will be like 100 pixel width, 100 pixel width. So we have to use a property called grid template columns. And using this property, we have to mention how many columns you want. Suppose you give 3 values. Now it will create 3 columns. If you give 4 values, it will create 4 columns. The first column width will be 100 pixel. Second column width will be 100 pixel. Third column width will be 200 pixel. Okay. And fourth column width will be 300 pixel. So now you have to decide how many columns you want. According to that, you have to give the values. So let's try here. Now let's suppose inside this grid container, I want to create totally 3 columns. If you want to create 3 columns, take 3 divs. So here I am taking 3 divs, like box 1, box 2, box 3. Box 1, box 2, box 3. Okay. Now here we have to say, remember, in the grid container, inside the grid container, we have to use a property grid hyphen template hyphen columns. Remember, it is a columns. Don't write column. Lot of people do mistake. They just write column, and this property will not work. It is like columns. Grid hyphen template hyphen columns. Now here I am saying that I want 3 columns, right? I want my first column size should be 200 pixel. Second column should be 200 pixel. Third column should be 400 pixel. So I am saying that I want 3 columns. First column size should be 200 pixel. Second column size should be 200 pixel. Third column size should be 400 pixel. Okay. Now let me add some background color so that we can visualize it in much more better way. So here I will just give background something like light green. For box 2, I will add background something like light salmon. For box 3, I will add a background color as light coral. That's it. Now if I go back here, box 2, box 3, here I need to change box 2, here I need to change box 3. Now if I go back to my browser, now see, box 1, box 2, box 3 are created. Box 1, box 2, box 3. So let me just make it 50 pixel margin top. Box 1, box 2, box 3. How many columns we told? 3 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 2. Suppose you told 4 columns. You want 4 columns. Then what I can do? I can make third column size as a 200 pixel and fourth column size as a 200 pixel. I have told 4 columns. It means I required 4 divs. I have to take one more div. Here 4. Now I will just add something called 4, and I will just change the color to something like sky blue. Okay, here I need to make it 4. Now 4 columns are created. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column. Okay. Yeah. Now understood how to create columns? Now let's try to understand how to create rows. How to create rows in the grid container. Okay. So to create rows in the grid container, we are going to take the help of one more property, that is grid template rows. Grid hyphen template hyphen rows. And here we have to tell how many rows you want, and you have to mention the size of your rows. Suppose if I say 200 pixel, how many rows will be created? Only 2 rows will be created. If I give 3 values, 3 rows will be created. If I give 4 values, 4 rows will be created. And you can give different sizes. You can give 100, you can give 200. Here also you can give 100. According to your requirement, you have to give the size. Grid template rows. To create the rows. So if I go back here, okay, I will take one more grid container. Here I will mention the class name as a rows. Here I will mention the columns. Okay, now I will just change this class name. Here I will add columns. Okay, we have one grid container in which we have created columns. If I go back here, I got columns. Now we have one more grid container. This is one more grid container. In this, I want to create rows. So what I will do, I will just copy this. I will paste here. Grid container rows. Okay, let me remove all this property. Now we have one more container, grid container rows. I have given same width as 800 pixel, height as 400 pixel, some border and some margin. Okay, so I got something like this. Now inside this, I want to create how many rows? I want to create, let's suppose I want to create 4 rows. But before we create rows, we have to make this grid container rows as a grid container. How to make? Simply we have to add display grid. Now how many rows you want? I want totally 4 rows. So grid hyphen template hyphen rows. What should be the size of your row? So let's see what is the total size of, what is the total height? It's like a 400 pixel. So what I want, my first row size should be 50 pixel. Second row size should be 200 pixel. It's like a 250. Third row size should be 100 pixel. Fourth row size should be 50 pixel. Now, whenever we are creating rows, size means it will consider height. So first row height will be 50 pixel. Second row height will be 200 pixel. Third row height will be 100 pixel. Fourth row height will be 50 pixel. Now I am not mentioning the columns here. If I am not mentioning column, it will by default, it will create only one column. If I am not mentioning the grid hyphen template hyphen columns, then by default, it will create only one column. Now, if I go back here, now see, 4 rows are created. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Here, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Okay, so can I change the text? Instead of box, I will add here column. Column 1, here I will say column 2, here column 3, column 4. Here I want row 1, row 2, here row 3, here row 4. Okay, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Understood how to create columns, how to create rows, how to create grid container? Okay, so only 2 properties, guys. Display grid, grid template column. Display grid, grid template rows. Now I want to create one more container. In that container, like now I want to create one more container. In that container, I want to create rows and columns. So I want to create like this one container. In this container, I want to create 3 rows. And let's suppose I want to create 2 columns. I want this structure. 3 rows, 2 columns. Okay, so let's try. I will create a separate file. Grid task dot task1.html. Okay, creating the basic structure. So I want one container here. So I'm just taking one container. Okay. Now let me just add styles. Container. Width. Let's suppose 800 pixel. Height 400 pixel. And let me just 400 pixel. Or can we make 600 pixel? Let's see how it looks. Border 3 pixel solid black. Now if I just load this document, it created something like this. Okay, so let me just make it 400 only. Height, yeah, fine. Okay, now here margin 50 pixel auto. Okay, now inside this, how many rows we want? We want 3 rows. So if you want 3 rows, so simply use the property grid hyphen template hyphen rows. Okay, so here simply I am adding 100 pixel, 200 pixel, 100 pixel. I have added this property. Now, as per our understanding, it should create 3 rows now. We created one grid container. Nothing but we created one container. In that, I'm just trying to add 3 rows. Let's suppose this is 100 pixel. This is 100 pixel. And in between, let's suppose we have 200 pixel. Now, inside first row, I want to add one div. So I'm just adding one div here. Something like box 1. Or I will copy the 3 divs from the previous. And I will add here. I will say here box 1, box 2, box 3. Okay, what I have done? Simply I have taken one container, created 3 rows, and in first row I have added first div, in second row second div, in third row third div. Now if I save it and if I go back and copy this CSS also, and if I add here, do you think 3 rows will be created with this size? 3 rows will be created with this size. Will it create 3 rows with this size? Okay, it will not create 3 rows with this size. See, 3 by default divs will come one after another, right? That is the reason 3 divs are coming one after another. But our rows are not getting this size. Why our rows are not getting this size? Because here we have not created grid container. So this grid template rows property and grid template column property, only it will work in the grid container. This both the properties, grid template rows, grid template column, will work only inside the grid container. If you are not creating the grid container, then these properties will not work. These properties will not have any kind of effect. Okay. So first I need to create one grid container. How to create? Using display grid. Now see, 3 rows are created with this size. Now I want 2 columns. If I want 2 columns, simply I will say grid hyphen template hyphen columns. So 400 pixel, 400 pixel. I will give 400 pixel, 400 pixel. It means inside this 2 columns will be created. Now you created rows and you created columns. Now inside grid container, how many divs you have taken? You have taken 3 divs, right? Box 1, box 2, box 3. Now in this case, what happens? Your first box, your box 1 will come and sit inside the first column. By default, your box 1 will come and sit here. Your box 2, that box 2 will come and sit here. And box 3 will come and sit here. Now you will get this kind of structure. So if I go back here, first let me save. If I go back here, now see box 1, box 2, box 3. Now if you want to add here also elements, then you have to add more 3 boxes. It should be 4, it should be 5, it should be 6. Here also 5. Here it should be 4, 5, 6. Now I can just add 3 more styles. Here I can make it 4. I can just change the color. Okay, I will just change some color. So it should be 5. It should be 6. Now see, I got it. Okay, now for all this color I want, can we add here color white? All content will be in the white color. Now if you want, you can just remove that border property. It will be like this. box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6. Understood how to create rows and columns? Suppose if I take 3 columns, if I make 3 columns, if I make 3 columns, what happens in that case? Suppose this is my container. In that I have totally 3 rows, row 1, row 2 and 3. And if I make 3 columns, okay, column 1, column 2 and 3. In that case, box 1 will come here. Okay. Your box 2 will come here. Your box 3 will come here. And your box 4, here box 5 and box 6. This is how they are going to arrange. Okay. So if I just save my file and if I go back to my browser, box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6. Here we have still some space. If I just add that border property, you will be able to see. See, it's empty space. Here we have an empty space. Okay. So like this, you can create any number of rows and columns. If you want, you can add space between these rows and columns. If you want, you can add space between rows and columns. So let me remove this. Let me make it 400, 400. Now it looks like this. Okay, let me remove border. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6. Now suppose in between this column, I want to add some gap. I want to add the gap. Now if you see here, I have some gap here. See, I have some gap in the column. Between these 2 columns, I have some gap. So if you want to create a gap, then we have a property called here column gap. How much gap you want, you can just specify that number. Suppose if I give 20 pixel, it will be like 20 pixel. I have one more property called row gap. 30 pixel, 40 pixel. Now 40 pixel gap I got. Column gap, row gap. Suppose if you want to use same value, 20 pixel column, 20 pixel row, then instead of using like these 2 properties, we can simply use one property, that is gap. If you say only 20 pixel, then 20 pixel gap will be created in column also, in row also. Now see, 20 pixel gap is created in column also, in rows also. Okay. So if you want in specific column or row, then you can go with their specific properties. If you want to give same gap between rows and columns, then you can go with gap. You can go with gap. Okay. Are you able to understand how to create rows and columns? Now, if I open that Ashok IT channel, Ashok IT website, if I just scroll down, Can we create this kind of structure, guys? Can we create this kind of structure? How many rows, how many columns? If I come back here, yeah. Now see, how many rows and columns? Now this is, you can consider this as one container, one grid container. Okay, inside that grid container, we can create 2 columns. We can create 2 rows. Okay, shall we try this part? Okay, so here I'm just creating one more task2.html. So first of all, we required one container. Okay, so style, one container. Okay, this is just class name, guys. You can give ID also. So here this time I will go with ID, or else people will just use class only. So whatever you want, you can assign. I'm just giving ID. Now we can assign some width. I'm giving something like 1200 pixel, height 400 pixel, and let me just add here border 2 pixel solid red, and let me see how it looks now. It looks something like this. Margin 50 pixel auto. It looks something like this. If I want, I can increase the height to 600 pixel. Or 500, let's try. Okay, something like this, 500 we got. Fine. Now, how many columns we want? We want 2 columns, 2 rows, right? So before that, we have to, what we have to do? We have to make it as a grid, display grid. Then template, this grid hyphen template columns. Okay, it should be like 600 pixel, 600 pixel, because our total width is 1200 pixel, right? According to that, I am trying to grid template column, template row 500, right? So I'm trying to give 250 pixel, 250 pixel. Okay. Now in all the columns and rows, I want to add 4 divs. So I will just add 4 divs here. Okay, I will just take one common class, something like box. Okay, here box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. We got that structure. Are we able to get that structure? Understood up to here? Anybody got confused? Anybody got confused till here? Okay. Now in the first box, what we want? one image we want, and some content we want. So can we do one thing in this first box? Okay, let's try to focus only on box one. In this, I want one image and I want content beside each other, right? Here, if you see the structure, they are beside each other. One image, one content. So for this, what I will do, I will take two divs. One is image div and one more is content div. In the first div, I will add one image tag. Width, I will say 100%. Height, something like 250 pixel. And in content div, in this content div, I will try to add this content. Maybe for this content, what we can take? Can I take H3 and one paragraph for this content? Something like this we got. Now, if I go back to my browser and if I check how it looks, so it looks something like this, right, guys? So here what I will do, I will add this image also. I will just copy image link. I will add that image link here. So it looks something like this. It is looking something like this. Okay, here let me try to decrease the width. Can I try 800? If I give 800, then here I have to change it to 400, 400. Okay, something like this. Okay, fine. Now this both the content we want beside each other. So like this we want. Image should be on the left, content should be on the right. So can I do one thing? Is my voice audible, guys? Yeah. So can we do one thing? This box, can we make as a flex? Display flex. If I say display flex, in that case, what happens? It will display like beside. Okay. Now let me go to 1200 only. I think 1200 looks better. Let me keep it 600 only. Now in this case, it looks like this. Now can I increase the size for this? Can I add inline styling? Width like 40%. And here width like 60%. If I do like this, now see in this case what happens. Now I got something like this. I got something like this. Now here for this box, I can simply say justify content to be center. No, it's okay. Now see here I got something like this. Now same thing can I repeat here also? So this box, same thing I will repeat here. Now I got something like this. Now I will remove this border. If I go back here, same thing I will repeat here. And same thing I will repeat here also. Now we got something like this. And I think they have added box shadow also. Box shadow 0010 pixel black. And we can add gap as well, 20 pixel. We got something like this. Okay, similar to that we got. Little similar to that we got. Maybe here they have added little padding for this. For a second div, they have added padding. Wherever there is a H3 and paragraph, right? There they have added little bit padding. Something like 20 pixel if I give. Now see here we got some padding. So like this 20 pixel, you have to add in all that 60% div. Here also we have to add. And if I just scroll down, here also I have to add. And if I scroll up on the first div, here also I have to add. Now see, here we are able to get similar to that one. Just we have to now replace the image and content. So I will just copy this image. I will add in the second div. Okay, I will just replace the images. Content you guys can display later on. Content you guys can replace afterwards. Okay, now here we got like this. Are we able to create similar to that one? Not exactly 100%, but similar to that one. Now they have added lot of CSS so that they have created some design. But 80% of design is similar to that one. Okay, now if you go to the Ashok IT website, now I think you guys will be able to create this section, this section, this section. This section you will not be able to create. Once we learn Bootstrap, then you will be able to create this section also. I hope you guys will be able to create this section. This section also you will be able to create. And we just created this part. So if you learn some more concepts, then you will be able to design this entire page. You will be able to design this entire page, maybe better than this page. If you guys add some innovative thinking in your coding, then you might create much more better page than this. Yeah, tell me guys, did you guys understood how to create this part now? Anybody got confused at any point of time? Let me know on the chat whether you understood or not. Did you understood how to design this part? Now, will you be able to create this part? Will you be able to create this part? Can I give this as an assignment to you guys? Can I provide this as an assignment to you guys? Saranya, for that, you have to do nested grid. You have to do nested grid. For your requirement, we have to do nested grid. Okay. So what I want, guys, here I am attaching one paint file. So I want you guys to design this entire page. I want you guys to design this entire page. I have just added one home page. So I just want you guys to design this entire page. So this part, this section, I will explain you in tomorrow's class. This section I will design. Okay, this section, you know how to design. This section is just an assignment, but anyways, tomorrow also I will explain this part. And if I explain this part and this part, then you will be able to design this part, and this part. These three parts you will be able to design. And if you just add one nav bar, then it creates one complete home page. It creates complete home page. So something like this. Okay, let me just show you. We know already how to create this nav bar. Okay, in tomorrow's session, I will explain you this part, how to design this part. And I will design this part as well. But before I try, I want you guys to try this part. Now, once I'm able to design these three parts, then remaining part in this home page. So remaining part, this part, and this section and this section. Section 1, section 2, section 3 will be like your assignment. 3 sections I will design, 3 sections you have to design. So if you are able to design this entire page, it means you have created one successfully one home page. You have created one home page for your website. Yeah. And these properties you can mention in any sequence. Okay. So this kind of questions you should not ask whether I can mention in this sequence or in that sequence. You have to try it. So someone is asking like, can I mention template grid rows before columns? Can I mention here? So you should not ask this kind of questions. You have to try it. That is what we call as a practice. I have explained you what is this concept, what is this concept. Now you have to do experiments on this. Okay. Now, if you go to the documentation, they will not tell us, okay, first you have to mention this property, then you have to mention this property, then you have to mention this property. They will just explain the concept. Now, we have to do a lot of experiment on this. You just remove this property and check what will be the effect. Add this property, change the grid value, and just check what is the output. Like this, you have to do a lot of experiments. Then only you will be mastering that particular concept. And that is what we call as an experience. That is what is called as an experience. If you take, let's suppose you guys are learning one technology. Let's assume that in that technology, there are only 10 concepts. Let's suppose we are learning one technology. In that technology, there are only 10 concepts. Now you guys are completely freshers. Now you know all these 10 concepts. Now I have around 8 years of experience. I also know only 10 concepts, but I have 8 years of experience. Now, if we both apply for job, now tell me, this company will give more salary to whom? They will give the more salary to you, or they will give the more salary to me? To whom they will give more salary? There are only 10 concepts, and all those 10 concepts you also know, even I also know. But if we apply for the job, they will give more salary to whom? For you or for me? Why they will give more salary to the experienced person? Because he have 8 years of experience. Means from 8 years he might be in different situation where he had handled that website or web application using these 10 concepts. There can be lot of situations where your 10 concepts might work in different way, and this candidate have more experience in handling those situations compared to this candidate. This is the only reason why experienced people have more demand in the market compared to the knowledgeable people. Suppose if I know only 7 concepts, you know 10 concepts, still they will give me the job, not to you. Because I have that experience. I might have worked on different scenarios, and you don't have that scenario experience. That is the only difference. Okay, so that is the reason. Try to do as much as practice, as much possible, that much try to do the practice. So if I'm taking 1 hour sessions, means minimum 3 hours you have to practice. Yeah. So that's all, guys, for today's session. In tomorrow's session, we will learn some more concepts of grid, like how to combine columns, how to combine rows, how to create nested grid, how to create complex grid structures. That we will